On my cancer remission celebration dinner, my son Michael, a successful orthopedic surgeon who runs his own practice in Buckhead, walked through my front door carrying a bouquet of pink roses and a smile that could light up the whole room. He set the flowers on my kitchen table, pulled out a chair, and looked at me with those warm brown eyes that reminded me so much of his late father. "Mom," he said, squeezing my hand, "I just want you to know how proud I am of you. 2 years cancer-free. And I'm so glad Denise has been helping me manage your chemo medications. The $8,000 a month is worth every penny to keep you healthy." I froze. My coffee cup stopped halfway to my lips. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too hot, like all the air had been sucked out through the window screens. $8,000? A month? For 18 months? "Michael," I whispered, my voice catching in my throat. "Honey, I finished chemotherapy 2 years ago. I've been in remission since then. The only medication I take now is a generic hormone blocker that costs $40 a month at Walgreens." The smile drained from his face like water through a sieve. He stared at me, his surgeon's hands that had healed so many people now trembling slightly on the table. "What?" "No, Mom. Denise handles all the billing. She told me your oncologist prescribed these new specialty medications because of your lymph node involvement. She said insurance only covered part of it." Before I could respond, I heard the click of high heels on my front porch. The door swung open without a knock, and there stood Denise, Michael's office manager, wearing a cream-colored pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check. Her hair was freshly highlighted, her nails were perfectly manicured in a glossy coral, and she carried a designer handbag I'd seen in the Nordstrom window for $2,400. "Michael." "Ruth, I didn't know you'd be here so early," she said, her voice honey-sweet but her eyes sharp as surgical scissors. She glanced between us, reading the tension in the room like a nurse checking vital signs. "Is everything okay?" My son stood up, confusion written all over his face. "Denise, Mom says she's not taking any expensive medications. She says she finished chemo 2 years ago." Denise's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. She set her purse down and walked over to me, placing a cool hand on my shoulder. "Oh, Ruth, sweetie. You've been through so much. Sometimes after cancer treatment, patients experience what we call chemo brain. It affects memory, comprehension." She turned to Michael, her voice dropping to a confidential tone. "Dr. Patterson mentioned this might happen. It's very common in women her age. Women her age. I'm 71 years old, and I worked as a registered nurse at Grady Memorial Hospital for 43 years before I retired. I've administered more medications than Denise has probably ever seen. I know the difference between chemotherapy and a simple estrogen blocker. And I know when someone is lying to my face. But I said nothing. Not yet. I just smiled softly and sipped my coffee, watching Denise through the steam rising from my cup. If you're still listening, tell me where you're watching from. Every comment you leave helps me know I'm not alone in this fight. And if this story touches something in your heart, don't forget to hit that like button so others can hear it too. My name is Ruth Washington, and I'm a 71-year-old widow living in the old Fourth Ward neighborhood of Atlanta, Georgia. This house, with its creaking front porch and the magnolia tree my husband planted before he died, has been my home for 42 years. I raised Michael here, taught him to read on that very couch, bandaged his scraped knees on these kitchen tiles. After my husband Jerome passed from a stroke 8 years ago, and then my own breast cancer diagnosis 6 years ago, I learned what it means to keep going when everything inside you wants to stop. But I survived the cancer. I survived the loneliness. I survived on my nurse's pension and Social Security, clipping coupons, shopping at Aldi, making one chicken last 3 meals. Michael became everything I'd hoped for him. After medical school at Emory and his residency at Johns Hopkins, he came back to Atlanta and opened Atlanta Premier Orthopedics. At 40 years old, he's got a thriving practice, a beautiful home in Brookhaven, drives a BMW 7 Series. I was proud. So proud. And I was grateful when he hired Denise Freeman 3 years ago as his office manager. She seemed efficient, professional, always brought me little gifts when she stopped by. Remember my birthday? Asked about my garden. I never suspected. Not until that moment at the kitchen table when the numbers didn't add up. After they left that afternoon, Michael kissing my forehead and promising to look into the medication situation. Denise flashing that brittle smile. I sat alone in the dimming light of my living room. The sun was setting behind the magnolia tree, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors Jerome had refinished with his own hands. $8,000 a month. 18 months. That's $144,000. I pressed my hand against my chest, feeling my heart beat steady and strong beneath my cotton blouse. A heart that had survived cancer, grief, and now this sharp blade of betrayal sliding between my ribs. I stood up and walked to my bedroom closet, reached up to the top shelf, and pulled down an old shoebox. Inside were all my medical records, because after 43 years as a nurse, I knew to keep everything. I spread them across my bed. Discharge summaries, prescription records, insurance explanation of benefits statements. The last chemotherapy infusion, March 15, 2023, 24 months ago. Current medication, tamoxifen, 20 milligrams daily. Cost, $38.42 per month, at Walgreens on Ponce de Leon Avenue. I had the receipts stapled together, because that's what you do when you live on a fixed income. You track every dollar. No specialty medications. No $8,000 monthly charges. Nothing. I picked up my phone and called my insurance company, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Georgia. After navigating through the automated system, I reached a real person. "Ma'am," the young man said after typing for what felt like an eternity, "I'm showing your prescription coverage for the past 18 months. You've got your tamoxifen filled monthly, your blood pressure medication, and your calcium supplement. Total monthly medication cost to your doctor's billing account, $247.63. That's what we show being billed from Atlanta Premier Orthopedics on your behalf." "And that's all?" I asked, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. "Yes, ma'am. Nothing else on your prescription benefits. Is there something we should be seeing?" I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wedding photo on my nightstand. Jerome in his Air Force uniform, me in my simple white dress, both of us so young and full of dreams. "Baby," I whispered to his picture. "Somebody's stealing from our son, and they're using my name to do it." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the dark, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood, the distant traffic on Freedom Parkway, a dog barking 3 houses down, the creak of old bones settling in an old house. But my mind wasn't old. It was sharp, cataloging facts like I used to catalog symptoms on a patient chart. Denise had access to Michael's business accounts. She processed all the billing. She knew I had cancer, knew Michael would pay anything to help me. And she'd been so helpful, so solicitous, always asking about my health, my medications. The next morning, I made a decision. I pulled out my old nursing notebooks, the ones where I used to track patient care. On a fresh page, I wrote, "Evidence log. Denise Freeman investigation. Date, the 8th of March, 2025. Claim, Michael paying $8,000 divided by month for my cancer medications. Fact, I finished chemo March 2023. Only take $40 divided by month tamoxifen. Insurance record, only $247.63 divided by month billed for all my medications. Conclusion, $8,000 divided by month is going somewhere else." I decided to do what I'd done for 43 years as a nurse. Gather data, observe, document, diagnose. That afternoon, I called Michael's clinic and asked to speak to his business partner, Dr. Susan Kim. She'd been over to my house for dinner twice, seemed like a straight shooter, the kind of woman who didn't suffer fools. "Ruth," she said warmly, "how are you feeling? Michael tells me you're doing wonderfully. Susan, I need to ask you something, and I need you to keep it between us for now. Has Michael mentioned anything about my cancer treatment costs?" There was a pause. "Actually, yes. Last month at our partners meeting, he mentioned he was covering significant out-of-pocket costs for your specialty medications. He seemed stressed about it, but said family comes first. Why? Because I'm not taking any specialty medications. I haven't for 2 years. The pause was longer this time. When Susan spoke again, her voice had changed, gone clinical and careful. Ruth, that's concerning. Our office manager handles all the medical billing and reimbursements. If there's a discrepancy, don't say anything to Michael yet, I interrupted. I need to be sure before I break his heart. But Susan, could you do something for me? Could you pull my patient billing records from your system? Just my records. I want to see what's being billed to Michael's business account. That would be irregular, she said slowly. But if there's potential fraud, I have a fiduciary responsibility as a partner. Give me a few days. I'll be discreet. 3 days later, Susan came to my house after clinic hours. She didn't ring the doorbell, just knocked softly. When I opened the door, her face told me everything I needed to know. We sat at my kitchen table, and she opened a manila folder. Inside were printouts, billing records, insurance claims, all marked with the Atlanta Premier Orthopedics letterhead. Ruth, Susan said quietly, I don't know how to tell you this. According to our billing system, your son's clinic has been submitting claims to insurance companies for treatments you never received. Specialized chemotherapy infusions, immunotherapy, genetic testing, all billed under your name and patient ID number. My hands were shaking as I looked through the papers. There were dates I'd supposedly received treatments, the same dates I'd actually been at home, tending my vegetable garden or at church on Wednesday night. There were medications I'd never heard of, procedures I'd never had. The insurance pays their portion, Susan continued, and the balance gets billed to Michael directly through the business account. He thinks he's covering your out-of-pocket costs. But Ruth, the insurance companies have paid out over $220,000 in fraudulent claims in the past 18 months. This isn't just theft from Michael. This is insurance fraud. This is a federal crime. I looked at her across the table. This strong, competent physician who'd probably never broken a rule in her life, and I saw something I hadn't expected. Anger. There's more, Susan said. I started digging into other financial irregularities. Credit card charges to the business account. Denise has a corporate card for client entertainment and medical supply purchases. In the past year, she's charged $73,000 to it. I found receipts for a salon called Bella Vita, charges at Phipps Plaza, weekend trips to Miami and Charleston, even payments to a private school called Westminster. Private school? I asked. Susan nodded grimly. I did some research. Denise has a 7-year-old daughter named Sophia. Tuition at Westminster is $32,000 a year. I don't think Michael knows about any of this. The room spun slightly. I gripped the edge of the table. Susan, my son, trusted her. He trusted her with his business, with his patients, with me. I know, Susan said softly. Ruth, we need to take this to the authorities. This is beyond just firing her. This is systematic fraud. But I wanted you to see it first, because, she hesitated, because I'm the one whose name she used. I finished. I'm the victim on paper. That night, after Susan left, I sat in my bedroom with all the evidence spread across my quilt. My late husband's quilt, the one his mother made, each square a different memory. I traced the patterns with my finger and thought about trust, about how my son had tried to help me, how someone had twisted that love into something ugly. I picked up my phone and called my son. Michael, honey, can you come over tomorrow morning? Early. Before work. There's something we need to discuss. Mom, is everything okay? Are you feeling all right? I'm feeling clearer than I have in months, I said. Just come. And Michael? Don't tell Denise. The next morning, Michael arrived at 7:30. Still in his workout clothes, worry etched across his face. I'd made coffee, set out his favorite lemon pound cake that I'd baked the night before, even though my hands had been shaking the whole time. Mom, what's going on? You're scaring me. I handed him the folder. Before you open that, I need you to understand something. I love you. I'm proud of you. And what I'm about to show you isn't your fault. But someone has been lying to both of us, and it's time for the truth. He opened the folder. I watched his face as he read through the billing records, the insurance claims, the credit card statements. Watched him go from confusion to disbelief, to a kind of pain I hadn't seen since his father died. "This can't be right," he whispered. "Mom, you never had these treatments?" "Never. I've been taking one $40 pill every day. That's all. But I've been paying," his voice broke. "I've been transferring money every month to cover what I thought were your medical costs. Denise told me the insurance was only covering a portion, that you needed these specialty drugs." That he stopped, his hands gripping the papers so hard, they crumpled. "Michael, look at the credit card charges." He flipped to those pages, the color drained from his face. "The spa, the boutiques, these trips, and Westminster School?" He looked up at me, and I saw my son breaking apart. "Mom, I don't understand. Why would she do this?" "Because she could," I said gently. "Because you trusted her. Because you were too busy saving lives to watch your own business. And because she thought an old woman with cancer would be easy to exploit." Michael stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. He paced across my small kitchen, his hands in his hair. "I'm going to fire her. Right now, I'm going to." "No," I said firmly, using my nurse voice, the one that could stop a resident from making a fatal mistake. "We're going to do this right. We're going to involve the authorities. We're going to build a case. And we're going to make sure she can never do this to another family." Michael stopped pacing and looked at me. "Mom, you sound like you're planning a military operation." I smiled, a real smile this time. "Honey, I spent 43 years keeping people alive in an emergency room. I know how to stay calm in a crisis. And I know how to fight when it matters." Over the next week, I became someone I'd never been before. Susan connected us with a healthcare fraud attorney named Patricia Moss, a sharp black woman in her 50s who'd prosecuted similar cases. We met in her office in Midtown, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Mrs. Washington," Patricia said after reviewing everything, "what Denise Freeman has done is called healthcare fraud and elder financial exploitation. The fact that she used your identity to submit false claims makes this identity theft as well. In Georgia, this carries serious criminal penalties. We're talking possible federal charges because it involves insurance fraud across state lines." "What do we need to do?" Michael asked, his voice hollow. "We need more evidence," Patricia said. "We need to document everything. And we need to catch her in a way that's irrefutable." "Mrs. Washington, would you be willing to wear a wire?" I blinked. "A wire? Like in the movies?" Patricia smiled. "Exactly like that. We need her to admit what she's done. We need it on tape." 2 weeks later, I was sitting in my living room with a tiny recording device taped to my chest under my flowered blouse. An FBI agent named Marcus Chen had come to my house that morning to set it up. He'd been gentle, professional, treating me with the kind of respect I hadn't felt in a long time. "Mrs. Washington," he'd said, "you're very brave to do this." "Agent Chen," I'd replied. "I'm just a mother protecting her son." I'd called Denise earlier that day, asked her to stop by after work, told her I had some questions about my medications, that I was confused. Played right into what she thought of me, an old woman with a failing memory. She arrived at 6, still in her work clothes, carrying her expensive purse. She hugged me at the door, that fake warmth I'd mistaken for friendship. We sat in my living room, and I poured us sweet tea. My hands were steady, which surprised me. I'd delivered babies in the back of ambulances. I'd held dying patients' hands. I'd told families their loved ones were gone. I could do this. "Denise," I said slowly, "I've been trying to understand my medical bills. Michael mentioned he's been paying for expensive medications, but I can't seem to remember taking anything except my regular pill." She leaned forward, her expression concerned. "Oh, Ruth, honey. Dr. Patterson has you on a very sophisticated treatment protocol. It's all very new, very specialized. The medications come from a special pharmacy." "Which pharmacy?" I asked innocently. It's a compounding pharmacy. Everything's delivered directly to Michael's office, and I make sure you get them." She sipped her tea, her eyes darting toward the door. That's strange, I said, my voice still gentle. Because I've never received any medications from you, or from Michael's office. Just my regular prescription from Walgreens. Her smile flickered. Ruth, you probably just forgot. Like I said, chemo brain is very common. I've personally delivered medications to you at least. Oh, a dozen times. Really? When? Well, she shifted in her seat. I'd have to check my records. I pulled out a small calendar from the side table, one I'd actually been keeping for the past 2 years, marking every visitor, every delivery, every outing. Denise, this is my calendar. I write down everything. Every person who comes to visit, every appointment. You visited me exactly 6 times in the past 18 months. Each time, you brought flowers or cookies. Never medications. The air in the room changed. Denise's smile disappeared completely. She set down her tea with a sharp click. Ruth, I don't appreciate being called a liar. And I don't appreciate being used to steal from my son, I said quietly. She stood up abruptly. I think I should go. Sit down, Denise. Something in my voice made her pause. Maybe she heard the nurse who'd dealt with violent patients in the ER. The woman who'd survived cancer. The mother who'd protect her child at any cost. Saturday. I know about the fraudulent insurance claims, I said. I know about the $220,000 paid out for treatments I never received. I know about the $8,000 a month you've been taking from Michael. I know about the credit card charges, the trips, the private school tuition. Her face went white, then red, then white again. You can't prove any of that. Actually, I can. I've got my medical records. I've got insurance statements. I've got credit card receipts. And I've got testimony from Dr. Susan Kim about financial irregularities. I leaned forward. Denise. Why? Michael trusted you. He paid you well. Why did you steal from him? Why did you use me? For a moment, I thought she'd bolt. But then something crumpled inside her. Her shoulders sagged, and tears started running down her face, taking her makeup with them. You don't understand, she choked out. I have a daughter. Her father left us. I'm raising her alone. Do you know how expensive it is in this city? The school, the clothes, the activities, all the other mothers. They have husbands, they have money, they have help. I didn't have anything, except a job at a medical clinic and a boss who was too busy to notice. So you stole from him, I said flatly. I borrowed, she insisted. I was going to pay it back. I just needed time. You were never going to pay it back, I said. And you weren't borrowing. You were committing fraud. You were using my name, my cancer, my son's love for me to commit federal crimes. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw her realize that the sweet old lady she'd been manipulating was gone. In her place was Ruth Washington, RN, who'd seen every kind of human behavior in 43 years in emergency rooms. What are you going to do? She whispered. I'm going to make sure you face justice, I said. I'm going to make sure you can never do this to another family. And I'm going to teach my son that trust has to be earned and verified. Denise ran then, grabbed her purse and ran out my door. But it didn't matter. Agent Chen had heard every word through the wire. 2 weeks later, FBI agents arrested her at the clinic. Michael called me that afternoon, his voice shaking. Mom, they arrested her. Right in front of patients. The FBI. They said they have her on multiple counts of healthcare fraud, identity theft, and wire fraud. I know, honey, I said gently. Did you know this was going to happen today? Yes. There was a long silence. You set her up. You wore a wire. I protected you. I corrected. There's a difference. The trial happened 4 months later. Patricia Moss prosecuted it personally. And I sat in the courtroom every single day, wearing my best Sunday dress, my hands folded in my lap. Michael sat beside me, and Susan came whenever she could between surgeries. The evidence was overwhelming. The fraudulent insurance claims, the credit card receipts, the recording of Denise admitting what she'd done, and my testimony, clear and detailed, describing exactly how I discovered the truth. The prosecutor asked me on the stand, "Mrs. Washington, how did you first realize something was wrong?" "The numbers didn't add up," I said simply. "I'm a nurse. I spent my career paying attention to details, because details save lives. When my son told me he was paying $8,000 a month for medications I knew I wasn't taking, I knew something was very wrong." Denise's lawyer tried to paint me as confused, as an elderly woman with memory problems. But Patricia destroyed that narrative with my medical records, my calendar, my documentation, and when they played the recording, the whole courtroom heard Denise's voice admitting everything. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 4 years in federal prison, 5 years probation afterward, and full restitution of $293,000, including the insurance fraud and the credit card charges. She also banned Denise from ever working in healthcare or financial management again. As they led her away in handcuffs, she looked at me one last time. I didn't look away. I wanted her to see that elderly doesn't mean weak, that cancer survivor doesn't mean victim, that a mother's love is the fiercest force in the world. After the sentencing, Michael and I sat in my car in the courthouse parking garage. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, he said, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have caught this. I should have been paying attention." I took his hand. "Honey, you were busy being a good doctor and a good son. You trusted someone who betrayed that trust. That's not your fault. I put you through hell." "No," I said firmly. "Denise put us both through hell. But we came out the other side. Together." He started crying then, big racking sobs, and I held my 40-year-old son the way I did when he was little and had nightmares. Some wounds take time to heal, but heal we did. Michael implemented new financial controls at his practice, hired a professional accounting firm to oversee the books, started paying more attention to the business side of medicine. Susan became the office manager in addition to being a partner, and they rebuilt the practice on a foundation of transparency. As for me, I used my small share of the restitution money to start something I'd been thinking about since the trial. I called it Medical Bill Defenders, a small nonprofit that teaches elderly patients how to read their medical bills, how to spot fraud, how to verify insurance claims. Every Tuesday evening, I hold a workshop at my church, Greater Mount Calvary Baptist. We sit in the fellowship hall with donated coffee and store-bought cookies, and I teach seniors how to protect themselves. I show them how to read an explanation of benefits, how to check prescription charges, how to ask questions without feeling stupid. The healthcare system is complicated, I tell them, and some people use that complexity to hide fraud. But you're not powerless. You can learn to protect yourself. Last month, a 78-year-old woman named Gloria came to me after a workshop. She showed me her bills, and together we discovered her home health aide had been billing Medicare for services never provided. We reported it, and the aide was arrested. Gloria hugged me afterward, tears in her eyes. "You saved me," she said. "No," I told her. "You saved yourself. I just showed you how." 6 months after the trial, Michael and I established a tradition. Every Sunday, he comes over for dinner. I make his favorites. We sit on the front porch and watch the neighborhood go by. And we talk, really talk, about his work, his life, his dreams, his fears. Last Sunday, as the sun was setting behind the magnolia tree, he said, "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Were you scared? When you were investigating Denise? When you wore the wire? During the trial?" I thought about it. Yes. I was terrified. But I was more afraid of what would happen if I did nothing. Fear can paralyze you, or it can push you forward. I chose forward. He smiled. "You're the strongest person I know. I'm just a mother baby. We do what we have to do." As I sit here now, telling you this story, I'm 71 years old. I've survived cancer, widowhood, and betrayal. I've learned that age doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. That every skill you've learned in your life, even from a job you retired from years ago, can save you when you need it most. If you're watching this, and you're caring for an elderly parent, please, verify everything. Don't assume the people you trust are trustworthy. Check the bills. Ask questions. Pay attention to the details. And if you're elderly yourself, if someone's telling you that you're confused, that your memory is failing, that you should just trust them, listen to your instincts. You know your own life. You know what medications you take, what treatments you've had. Don't let anyone gaslight you into doubting yourself. I've been asked if I regret what happened, if I wish I'd handled it differently. The truth is, I wish Denise had never stolen from us. I wish Michael hadn't been betrayed, but I don't regret fighting back. I don't regret standing up for myself and my son. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, patient, methodical. Sometimes it's an old nurse with a notebook and a calendar, documenting the truth one detail at a time. My name is Ruth Washington. I'm a 71-year-old cancer survivor, retired nurse, and mother. I'm also a woman who learned that it's never too late to fight for what's right. Never too late to stand up. Never too late to seek justice. Never too late to show the world that underestimating an elderly woman is the biggest mistake someone can make. If this story touched you, if you've experienced something similar, share it in the comments. Your voice might help someone else find the courage to speak up. And subscribe to Never Too Late Stories, because every week, I'll bring you more stories of people who prove that age is just a number, and strength has no expiration date. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And remember, it's never too late.